Chapter 1261. Luo Qingtong looks at Hu Zhongtian. She is determined to get the map of the Saint King's tomb. But since the other party is Yan Nyang's father, Chu Lingfeng's grandfather, then she will give him a fair chance to trade. If the other party agrees, then everyone will be happy. If not, Luo Qingtong naturally has a way to get that thing. But then, she will not be so easy to talk to. Even if Chu Lingfeng and Yan Nyang kneel and beg, she will not help them. Cough cough. I know my own illness, so don't bother. Hu Zhongtian did not take Luo Qingtong's words to heart. The youth is so young, how good can his medical skills be? He has seen all the alchemists in Wildland City and even other places, but it is useless. So there is no need to trouble the other party. He smiles bitterly. That thing, if you want it, then take it. Originally, that person gave it to Yan Nyang. Also, thank you for taking care of Yan Nyang and her son. Hu Zhongtian's words are very clear. He does not need Luo Qingtong to treat his illness, nor does he need anything else. As long as Luo Qingtong takes care of Yan Nyang and her son, it is enough. What's more, the other party took care of Yan Nyang and the rest before. That thing can be considered as a thank you gift. As Hu Zhongtian speaks, he struggles to support his body and is about to take that thing to Luo Qingtong. He knows his own body, he can't hold on for much longer. Instead of waiting for him to die and let the second elder's people get it, it will benefit the Bai family. Why not give it to the youth? Hu Zhongtian's words make Luo Qingtong raise her eyebrows. She also does not refute Hu Zhongtian's words. Whether he can be cured or not, the other party will know in the future. Luo Qingtong's face is indifferent. Okay, then it's settled. Wait until you are better, then give it to me. Although Luo Qingtong usually receives a deposit first, but the other party is now sick, she is not in a hurry. Anyway, she is not afraid that Hu Zhongtian will go back on his words. His life was in her hands. Since she was able to save Hu Zhongtian, she was naturally able to kill him silently. However, with Yan Nyang and Chu Lingfeng present, the other party may not necessarily do such a thing. Luo Qingtong got up and walked outside. Arrange a side courtyard for me. It must be quiet enough and not be disturbed in any way. Also, your illness is a little tricky. Although it's called an illness, it's actually because you were seriously injured in the past. Your ribs are broken in your chest and lungs. In the end, someone fed you a medicine that strongly stimulated the growth of your flesh and bones, causing your flesh and bones to grow together. On the surface, it looks like it has healed, but in reality, it has planted a disaster. The broken bones in your body have now grown so large that they are filling up your chest and lungs. It's not that easy to get rid of it. You should take care of your body first. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll die the moment I start. Luo Qingtong said. She raised her hand and threw a prescription to Chu Lingfeng. Follow this prescription and prepare the medicine for your grandfather. Soak him in it 3 times a day. When the time comes, I will naturally treat him. Hey! Chu Lingfeng quickly took it. Hu Zhongtian originally wanted to say something, but hearing Luo Qingtong's words, his face was surprised and happy. The other party can actually say that he was injured in the past. Could it be this time? He really can be saved. Hu Zhongtian also did not know how he got sick. If it's really like what Luo Qingtong said, he must investigate, to see who stole his medicine when he was injured. Hu Zhongtian's heart was pleasantly surprised, but Luo Qingtong has already left his room. Luo Qingtong just came out of the room and saw Yu Sihuang confronting a group of people. Chapter 1262. Why are you guys here? Luo Qingtong looks at the group of people who appeared in front of her. Demonic Doctor Bei Qing and the others are confronting Yu Sihuang. When they see Luo Qingtong come out, they immediately walk towards her. Yu Si Huang follows behind them with an unhappy face. His heart is indescribably gloomy. These people really came at the wrong time. He finally got the chance to get along well with Luo Qingtong and these people appear. He also doesn't know where Yi Qianxian is. If he knows that he is here with Luo Qingtong, he will definitely come running over. At that time, his chance to get along well with Luo Qingtong will be ruined. Yu Si Huang is thinking about this. Bei Qing and the others have already walked in front of Luo Qingtong. Cough. Demonic doctor, we are here to give you a gift under the orders of our master. Bei Qing's face is conflicted. As she speaks, she raises her hand and takes out something that she and the others brought. Looking at the thing that they take out, Luo Qingtong discovers that they actually brought a small bamboo basket. The small bamboo basket is covered with a small piece of black cloth. Luo Qingtong looks at them lift the black cloth on the bamboo basket. Then she looks at the thing in the bamboo basket and stares blankly. This. Did Yi Qianxian ask you to give it to me? Luo Qingtong looks at the little fellow who is lying in the bamboo basket curled up into a ball. It seems to be asleep. It had light silver soft fur, a red nose, and 2 small ears that were twitching. Its tiny body was encircled in a circle. It looks like a round little meatball. This appearance is so cute. Luo Qingtong looks at the little fellow lying in the bamboo basket in a daze. This is a young fox. Yi Qianxian actually sent such a cute little fox to me. Just as Luo Qingtong was speaking, she saw that the little fox seemed to be unable to sleep well. It suddenly flipped over and then used its pair of little claws to pull at its ears. With this pull, the little fellow wakes up. Then, Luo Qingtong looks at it squatting there and looking at its 2 small claws with disdain. Luo Qingtong doesn't know how to describe that appearance. It was as if it wasn't looking at its 2 little claws, but at its sworn enemy. In fact, it is so. Yi Qianxian's heart is unspeakably gloomy. He looked at the 2 pink and tender paws in front of him that had no lethality and could only make people bleed. Then, he thought of his stupid and cute action that he couldn't control his animal instincts. He suddenly had the urge to chop off these 2 paws. Yi Qianxian didn't think that when the heavenly demon fox went berserk, he couldn't completely avoid the attack before it died. The consequences are actually so serious. That is the demon fox curse that used up all of the heavenly demon fox's blood essence. It turned Yi Qianxian into this little fox appearance. Not only is he unable to use his strength as a human, but he also has the habits of a little fox. Yi Qianxian thought of his action of pulling at its ears and felt a burst of shame. He doesn't want to admit that it was him who did it. Just when Yi Qianxian is feeling gloomy, Luo Qingtong looks at it squatting on the ground and finds it funny. She raises her hand and pokes its little ears. Chapter 1263. Tell your master that I like his gift very much. Luo Qingtong looked at the little fellow in front of her and was extremely happy. Because she found that this little fox's eyes were exactly the same as Yi Qianxian's. That kind of cold gaze, as if it was looking down on the world with disdain and countless swords, made Luo Qingtong fall in love with this little fellow at first sight. Was this the reason why Yi Qianxian gave her this little fox? To let this little fox, who had the same eyes as him, accompany her in his place. Luo Qingtong liked Yi Qianxian's way of expressing his feelings. What's more, the little fox's actions were extremely similar to Yi Qianxian's when he was angry. She didn't know how much time and effort that man spent to find and train such a little fox for her. Luo Qingtong smiled and picked up the little fellow. Then she saw the ring on its little paw and was even more certain of her guess. I didn't expect him to give this ring to you. Sure enough, he had the intention of letting you accompany me. Luo Qingtong said and kissed the little fox's little face. In an instant, Yi Qianming's expression stiffened. He was about to resist, but he also paused. Luo Qingtong was naturally talking about the Shifang dragon ring. Yi Qianming looked at the ring on his paw and felt conflicted. Between being found out by Luo Qingtong and losing face, or being kept as a pet, he decisively chose the latter. He obediently let Luo Qingtong hold him, but his heart was indescribably gloomy. This was not the same as when his soul was kept captive by Luo Qingtong. At that time, although Yi Qianming could vaguely feel what Luo Qingtong did to him and later regained the memories of his soul, he didn't have a deep understanding of his original body. Now, he was being kept as a pet by his own woman. Thinking of this, Yi Qianming gnashed his teeth in anger. It glanced at Bei Qing and the others with an indescribably cold gaze. However, he looked too adorable and was not lethal at all. Bei Qing and the others did not understand what he was trying to say at all. Bei Qing heaved a sigh of relief when she saw her mistress being held in Luo Qingtong's arms obediently. When they found out that Yi Qianming had been cursed by the demon fox blood curse and turned into a fox cub, they were shocked and panicked. Fortunately, after Elder Yu saw it, he told them not to worry. He said that Yi Qianming's physique was special and the demon fox blood curse had no effect on him. It was only because he had taken the heavenly demon fox's blood essence to prolong his life. Coupled with the demon fox blood curse, such signs had appeared. Once Yi Qianming completely dissolved the sky demon fox's blood essence in his body, he would change back. Hearing Elder Yu's words, Bei Qing and Feng Yu finally felt relieved. However, how to deal with Yi Qianming became a problem. Now that their mistress had become like this, they couldn't leave her alone. And they also had their own things to do. After thinking about it, they decided to send Yi Qianming to Luo Qingtong. Their mistress must be very happy to stay with the evil doctor. Bei Qing and the others were thinking about this happily. It was also because Feng Yu went to deal with the matters of the Star Alliance. Otherwise, she would have killed Bei Qing and the others in minutes. Their mistress liked the evil doctor. It was true that she loved the evil doctor. Chapter 1264. He was so stupid. Yu Lao, who had instigated Bei Qing and the others to do this, was laughing to death. It was rare to be able to mess with this brat Yi. It was really fun. Yi Qianming was handed over to Luo Qingtong. No matter how dense Bei Qing and the others were, they knew that their master didn't want to be surrounded by people when she interacted with Luo Qingtong like this. Whoever was watching would be unlucky. Therefore, the group of people left without a trace. Only Yi Qianming was left in Luo Qingtong's arms with a depressed expression. Yu Sihuang came over at this time. I didn't expect Yi Qianming to have such romantic thoughts, he said sourly. In his heart, he scolded the other party for being too treacherous. He actually thought of using this trick to show his existence in front of Luo Qingtong. Even though he wasn't here, he still dominated Luo Qingtong. Was there any justice left? This little silver fox doesn't look very good. He circled around Yi Qianming and sized up its furry and meaty body with a look of disdain. If you like, I can catch a bunch for you. I guarantee that they will only be more round and cuter than this one and have shiny fur. As Yu Sihuang spoke, he raised his hand and poked Yi Qianren. The latter was furious. Yi Qianqian's attention was focused on Luo Qingtong and Bei Qing. He didn't notice Yu Sihuang next to him. Now that he saw the other party, the latter actually dared to poke him. He immediately raised his hand and waved his claws. Yu Sihuang didn't care at first, but he didn't expect the other party's claws to be so sharp. It was obviously a little fox that had just been weaned, but with a swipe of its claws, it scratched a piece of skin on his hand. One must know that with Yu Sihuang's strength, not just anyone can injure him. Not to mention the little silver fox that Yi Qianxian transformed into. From its appearance, it didn't look strange at all. It looked like a cute pet. This little fox is rather peculiar. Yu Sihuang was surprised. he raised his hand to grab Yi Qianxian. The latter's gaze was cold, and the two meatballs, pink and tender little claws, instantly reached out with sharp claws. At this time, Luo Qingtong raised her hand to stop Yu Sihuang. "It's mine." Luo Qingtong looked at him with a faint smile. "Don't touch it." It would have been fine if Yi Qianxian had sent an ordinary fox, but it just had to be a little fox that looked so much like him. Luo Qingtong was not the kind of woman who would be confused by the cute appearance of small animals. However, this little fox's eyes were exactly the same as Yi Qianxian's. She liked it very much. Not to mention the fact that she was wearing Yi Qianxian's 10-sided dragon ring on her claws, which showed how much Yi Qianxian valued the little fox. Luo Qingtong naturally couldn't let it be bullied by Yu Sihuang. Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, before Yu Sihuang could open his mouth, Yi Qianxian's heart was already filled with joy when Luo Qingtong said, "It's mine." His consciousness hadn't reacted yet, but this body that had inherited the nature and instincts of a young fox had already automatically jumped up, moved in front of Luo Qingtong, and gently licked her. From time to time, it would make a low, coquettish sound, and then use its small round head to rub Luo Qingtong's face. Chapter 1265. Yi Qianxian froze on Luo Qingtong's shoulder like a bolt from the blue. His heart felt as if it had been split into 7 or 8 pieces. He didn't dare to look at what he had just done. He was a dignified revered underworld, this damned demon fox blood curse. Yi Qianxian's heart felt as if there was nothing left to live for. Luo Qingtong looked at its face that changed from joy to shock, and then to a dull expression. It was so cute that her face was about to bleed. Especially when the other party had a pair of eyes that were exactly the same as Yi Qianxian's, she had an inexplicable feeling as if Yi Qianxian was in a daze in front of her. Luo Qingtong was overjoyed. She directly picked it up and kissed the little fox's pink nose. Then she smiled and greeted Yu Sihuang. She brought the little fellow back to the main courtyard that the shadow guards of the family who had prepared for her. Yu Sihuang looked at Luo Qingtong with a depressed expression as she left with the little fox. Then he looked at Yu Xingqi beside him and asked, "Am I not handsome?" He raised his hand and stroked the mole at the corner of his eye. His charming eyes had an indescribable evil charm. It was very enchanting. Handsome. Even if Yu Xingqi had always taken it as his duty to trick his own brother. He couldn't go against his conscience and say that he wasn't handsome. This was simply an evildoer to the bone. "Am I not powerful?" Yu Sihuang shook off the aura around his body. Powerful. The master of the Southern Domain's imperial sect, the future overlord of the 3 islands and 7 lands, and Yu Sihuang had cured the hidden heart disease in his body. In the future, his strength would soar greatly. How could he not be powerful? If he wasn't powerful, he would have been swallowed up by others. "Am I not powerful enough?" Yu Sihuang asked again. Powerful. The current True Spill continent was divided into the north, south, east, and west regions. Yu Sihuang ruled the southern domain's strongest 3 islands and 7 lands. In the entire southern domain, most of the people had to look at his face. How could he not be powerful? Then why doesn't Tong like me? Yu Sihuang's face was also depressed. He was handsome and strong. Men and women, young and old alike, were all attracted to him. Why was Luo Qingtong so indifferent to him? If Luo Qingtong hadn't personally admitted that Yi Qianxian was different from him, he would have thought that she wouldn't fall in love with any man. To be honest, Luo Qingtong was definitely the most extraordinary woman he had ever seen. The girl was evil and unbridled, living more recklessly than anyone else in this world. That kind of recklessness was not the kind that had no confidence and only knew how to rely on the power and strength behind one's back, as well as one's appearance, recklessly and unreasonably causing trouble. Instead, it was a feeling that came from the pinnacle of the world. This feeling was very strong. In fact, Yu Si Huang had never sensed any timidity or inferiority from Luo Qingtong when she was alone with him. Clearly, the other party's strength was not on the same level as his. However, from Luo Qingtong, Yu Si Huang could see that the other party's strength was on par with his. She even had an aura that was on the same level as him. This was the reason why Yu Si Huang looked at Luo Qingtong in a different light. Otherwise, with his identity as the overlord of the southern domain, even if he was grateful to Luo Qingtong for saving his life, and had a good impression of her, he wouldn't have repeatedly backed down in front of her and kept degrading himself. It was because the feeling that Luo Qingtong gave him was very different. Chapter 1266. He believed that Yi Qianxian should also be attracted by Luo Qingtong's unique temperament. It was just that the other party was one step ahead of him and got to know Luo Qingtong first, so now he had the upper hand in everything. Thinking of this, Yu Si Huang's heart suddenly felt depressed. At this time, Yu Xingqi's voice rang in his ears. "Brother, do you really want to hear the truth?" Yu Xingqi looked at him with a serious face. Yu Si Huang inexplicably had a bad feeling. He always felt that his sister wouldn't say anything good. Sure enough, the next second, Yu Xingqi's voice rang. "That's probably because other than your handsome face, Blackfield's Ming Zun is better than you in every other aspect, right? If I were your sister, I wouldn't want you either." "Ah! Save me. Kill your sister. Yu Xingqi, come here." Luo Qingtong didn't know what happened between Yu Si Huang and his sister at all. She was preparing to bait the little silver fox that Yi Qianming had transformed into. Before the little fox, Luo Qingtong had never tried to raise a pet. Of course, contracted beasts didn't count. The little fox was her first real pet and it was given to her by Yi Qianming. Luo Qingtong was prepared to treat it well and fulfill the obligations of a master. "Come here, little guy." Luo Qingtong patiently coaxed the little guy opposite her. When she put it down, the little guy ran into the quilt and hid. Luo Qingtong looked at his head coming out of the quilt with a vigilant and alert look. She suddenly found it funny. Who was the one who came over and acted spoiled with her? This little guy changed his face faster than flipping a book. And this look was very similar to when she teased little Ming Zun. The latter was vigilant and alert, afraid of being tricked again. Luo Qingtong held back her laughter and continued to coax the other party softly. "Humph." Yi Qianming gritted his teeth in frustration as he watched her teasing him in a soft voice. This woman was simply, he really wanted to rush out and press this woman under his body to teach her a good lesson. However, he looked at his short stature, which was soft and cute, and had no lethality. If he rushed out, that woman would only think that he was throwing himself into her arms. He immediately turned his head gloomily and turned around, leaving his but for Luo Qingtong to see. Even if he was beaten to death, he would never allow this woman to raise him as a pet. Otherwise, if the fact that he had once turned into a little fox was exposed, how could he raise his head in front of her? This woman was already arrogant enough in front of him. He couldn't let her get hold of his weakness and take a mile after taking an inch. Yi Qianming thought so and was determined not to respond to Luo Qingtong's call. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows when she realized that she couldn't call it out. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something and smiled. "Yaw." Luo Qingtong suddenly walked out of the door and Yi Qianming's ears perked up. Had this woman given up? That's good. Bei Qing and those bastards, when I go back, I'll teach them a lesson. Yi Qianming's face was cold and his eyes that seemed to be filled with swords were cold. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's footsteps sounded again. Then, a grasshopper that was tied up with a rope was placed in front of Yi Qianming. "Come here." Luo Qingtong pulled the rope that tied the grasshopper and then the grasshopper was forced to jump towards Luo Qingtong. Chapter 1267. Yi Qianming looked at the grasshopper bouncing towards Luo Qingtong and snorted. He turned his head away, not wanting to bother with Luo Qingtong. However, before he could turn his head, the little fox cub jumped up and chased after the grasshopper, throwing itself into Luo Qingtong's arms. Ha! Good boy. Luo Qingtong hugged the little fox that pounced over and smiled so widely that one could not see her eyes. Her eyes were curved as she lowered her head and kissed the little fox's nose several times. She didn't know that the fox's face under the fluffy fur had turned completely black. Yi Qianming gritted his teeth and looked at the little grasshopper that was struggling under his claws. He was so angry that he tore it into pieces. He forgot about his cub's instincts. This damned demon fox's blood curse. Yi Qianming was held tightly in Luo Qingtong's arms. He couldn't even struggle and his heart was indescribably depressed. Luo Qingtong ordered the servants in the side courtyard to boil some hot water for her. The people in the main courtyard were all loyal to Hu Zhongtian. Luo Qingtong wasn't afraid that they would neglect her. The servants responded and prepared to leave. At this moment, one of them who seemed to be the leader hesitated and said, "Does young master want to take a bath?" "If that's the case, there is a good hot spring in the main courtyard. It flows from the ground. If young master wants to take a bath, you can go there to relieve your tiredness." These servants were all ordered by Hu Zhongtian to treat Luo Qingtong as if she was a guest at home. Naturally, they didn't dare to neglect her. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows when she heard that. She said to them with interest, "All right, lead the way." If there was a hot spring to bathe in, Luo Qingtong was naturally willing to enjoy it. What's more, the little guy in her arms was so naughty. Luo Qingtong thought about it. If she bathed it, she would inevitably get wet. She might as well bathe it together. Luo Qingtong thought about it and immediately brought Yi Qianming to the hot spring. Looking at the hot spring that was surrounded by a small courtyard, Luo Qingtong dismissed the servants who came to lead the way. She thought about it and set up an array. Then she took off her outer clothes and entered the hot spring. Yi Qianming didn't struggle. He stared blankly at Luo Qingtong's body that was only wearing thin clothes. The young girl's exquisite figure was wrapped in her undergarments, making her appear very graceful and charming. What was worse was that as Luo Qingtong stepped into the hot spring, the girl's figure was half hidden and half exposed in the thin clothes. Yi Qianming was stunned. Especially when Luo Qingtong entered the hot spring. She stretched herself comfortably and then leaned against the shore of the hot spring with a relaxed and languid expression. She looked like a fairy that fell into the room from the sky and also like a beautiful demon that climbed out of the water. She was naturally bewitching, full of vitality and fragrance. Luo Qingtong's enchanting and charming face and her charm that could cause the downfall of a country were intertwined, forming a strange picture that could attract people to commit a crime. She was so beautiful and enchanting that it couldn't be imagined. This was a completely different kind of charm from her usual evil aura. Chapter 1268. Luo Qingtong was enjoying the comfort of the hot spring. When she lowered her head, she saw the little fox in her arms staring at her in a daze. She immediately smiled. "What are you looking at?" She tapped its little nose. "Have you never seen a beauty like me?" Luo Qingtong chuckled. At this moment, she was very relaxed. It was rare for her to tease this little guy. She didn't expect to get a response. She didn't expect the latter to nod its head in a daze. "Ha ha ha. Did Yi Qianming teach you? You nod no matter what I ask." Luo Qingtong looked at the little fox's wet body. She smiled and helped it bathe. The latter's body stiffened. Luo Qingtong's hands wandered around its body, rubbing it. If it wasn't for this lively scene, perhaps Yi Qianming wouldn't have thought so much. But right now, his body was burning hot. However, Yi Qianming was in the form of a little fox. It was impossible for him to do anything to Luo Qingtong. While feeling depressed, he desperately tried to suppress the heat in his body. Vaguely, streams of heat flowed through Yi Qianming's body as its aura surged and was quietly dissolved. Yi Qianming's little fox body had unknowingly grown a little bigger. It was because the blood essence he stole from the sky demon fox had been dissolved. Once the essence blood was completely dissolved and his life was extended, the demon fox blood curse that Yi Qianren was afflicted with would lose its effect. At that time, he would regain his human form. After some of the blood essence in Yi Qianqian's body was dissolved, it became weak. It curled up in Luo Qingtong's arms. Luo Qingtong looked at it and immediately used her dry clothes to wrap it up. She wiped the water off its body and then placed it on the edge of the hot spring, letting it stay close to her. Strange, why do I feel that you have grown a little bigger? Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian, who was wrapped up like a ball, and felt a little strange. Was she mistaken? However, even if he did grow up a little, there was nothing to be concerned about. This little animal from another world was different from what she had known before. Plus, this silver fox was a gift from Yi Qianxian. Perhaps it had a special background. Luo Qingtong thought so and didn't take it to heart. She soaked in the hot spring for a while longer. Then, she got up, put on her coat, and returned home with the silver fox. After returning to the room, Luo Qingtong took off her soaked clothes and changed into her underwear for sleeping at night. She lay on her bed and looked at the silver fox that she had placed on top of her blanket. The latter seemed to have recovered a little. His ears were twitching, and he lowered his head with a look of disgust. No one knew what he was doing. His two claws were still desperately patting something on the bedding, pulling up the silk brocade quilt. Luo Qingtong was not angry when she saw it like this. She only felt that it was very interesting. The little fellow's emotions seemed to be particularly human-like. His actions were like that of a person who was sulking. Luo Qingtong thought about the scene where she used the grasshopper to tease the silver fox. She felt a burst of laughter in her heart. Could it be that it was upset because it couldn't hold on to its little resistance because of that? Chapter 1269. For some reason, Luo Qingtong just wanted to tease this little fox. Perhaps it was because the latter had a pair of eyes that were similar to Yi Qianqian's, so she couldn't help but love the house and its crow. Or perhaps it was because the other party didn't behave like an ordinary little fox and was especially intelligent. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong might not have had the patience and thought to do so. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, her eyes suddenly turned slightly, and she had a good idea. She looked at the little fox who was still sulking on the bedding, got up with a smile, put on an outer robe, and walked out. After a while, she came back with a bowl in her arms. A faintly discernible fragrance wafted from her bowl. Come here, little guy, eat chicken. Luo Qingtong took out a piece of chicken that had been fried until it was golden and soft from the bowl and waved it in front of Yi Qianxian. The latter was originally unwilling to pay attention to her. He was still deeply immersed in the shadow of catching a grasshopper just now, unable to extricate himself. However, the fox cub in his body couldn't resist the temptation of that piece of chicken. Yi Qianqian's two little fox ears kept trembling. He tried his best to control his body and not look at that piece of chicken. However, that fragrance kept drifting into his nose. That tempting fragrance made Yi Qianqian's fox cub body completely unable to suppress its instincts. Ing! The moment Luo Qingtong put the piece of chicken in front of him, Yi Qianqian's fox cub body pounced over, wanting to grab that piece of chicken. However, Luo Qingtong's eyes were sharp and her hands were nimble, and she took that piece of chicken away. Yi Qianxian immediately pounced into the soft brocade quilt, and his silver body sank into the quilt softly. After a while, he was finally picked up by Luo Qingtong. Ha! Luo Qingtong looked at its small appearance of saying one thing and thinking another. It was so cute. She picked up the silver fox and placed the piece of chicken in front of him. She smiled and said, "Raise your paw." As she spoke, she reached out a hand to him, indicating for him to place his little paw on her palm. Yi Qianxian looked at Luo Qingtong's outstretched hand, and his furry little fox face instantly turned green and black. As a dignified underworld venerable, he would never do such a thing. Paw. Before he could finish his thoughts, his body that was completely controlled by the nature and instincts of a young fox immediately placed his two little paws on Luo Qingtong's palm. Yi Qianxian was on the verge of a mental breakdown. Looking at his disappointing body, he had the urge to go back in time, reverse the universe, and go back to the time when he hunted the heavenly demon fox and stop all of this. He really couldn't watch anymore. Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth in his heart. Luo Qingtong, on the other hand, was indescribably happy. She picked up the incomparably obedient and cute little fox in front of her and couldn't help but kiss its little nose. Then, he held its two little paws and kissed them on each of its soft and tender paws. He smiled and said, "Good boy. Silver Baby is so smart." "Who are you calling Silver Baby? This venerable one doesn't want such a childish name." Yi Qianxian's face turned even darker. However, his body lowered its head to eat the chicken, and it was indescribably happy. From time to time, it would let out a satisfied and happy snoring sound, as if it was echoing Luo Qingtong's words. Chapter 1270. The girl and the fox continued to play for a long time. Of course, Luo Qingtong was the only one who was having fun. Yi Qianxian's face darkened as he watched his young fox body do all kinds of immoral things under the temptation of the chicken. He couldn't bear to look at it. He made up his mind that in the future, he would never reveal the fact that he had turned into a fox and was kept as a pet by Luo Qingtong for a long time. Luo Qingtong played with the silver fox for a while. She had enough of its gloomy and disgusted face. When she saw how happy the chicken was acting, she smiled and hugged it to sleep. Wild City, by Family. Bai Changfeng waved away the Bai family guard who came to report. He looked at the people around him and said, "That fool from family who brought a few people and broke into family who, alarming Hu Zhongtian." At this time, Hu Zhongtian has already recognized him. When Bai Changfeng said this, his face turned gloomy. This was definitely not the result the Bai family wanted to see. Hu Zhongtian was going to die soon. When the second elder of family who came to power, if Hu Zhongtian didn't want Hu Fei to die with him, he would have to obediently hand over the things that belonged to family Hu. However, now that Hu Zhongtian and Chu Lingfeng had acknowledged each other, there was a change in all of this. Damn it! Why didn't that Hu Yannyang die outside? Otherwise, we wouldn't have to worry so much today. She was hunted down with a child, but she was still able to escape. They had really underestimated her. Humph. Big brother, why are you in such a hurry? Family who has been in the palm of our hands for more than 10 years. Now, our Bai family's strength is more than twice as strong as before. Family who is struggling at death's door. Even if Hu Zhongtian and that fool, or even Hu Yannyang, recognize each other, so what? Don't tell me that they're capable of overturning the universe. An elder of the Hu clan below said with a disdainful expression. He didn't care about family Hu at all. That's right. Another middle-aged man sitting to the right of Bai Changfeng also said, family Hu is nothing to be afraid of. Our Bai clan doesn't need to pay attention to them, but Jin Tang and the others. Why haven't we heard from them yet? Could it be that something went wrong during the operation to capture that lightning beast? Impossible. Bai Changfeng waved his hand. The location of the lightning beast, the method to lure it here, and the various arrangements in the surroundings were all set up by that lord himself. Absolutely nothing will go wrong. I'm just worried that there might be an accident with the ripening date of the amethyst fruit, so Enchanting and the others haven't been able to catch the thunder beast yet. That's true. The middle-aged man nodded. If that's the case, then let's wait. After all, the clear heart purple jade fruit is also a strange fruit. It's normal for there to be some sudden changes. Bai Chang Feng nodded. Don't worry about Enchanting and the others for now. It won't take long anyway. Moreover, that lord hasn't come to our Bai family yet. There's no hurry. What I'm worried about now is that among the people that family Hu Fool brought to family Hu, there's a man called Yi Jiu who claims to have good medical skills and wants to treat Hu Zhongtian. Chapter 1271. The voice of another elder of the Bai family rang out. Family head, you're worrying too much. No one knows better than us what's wrong with Hu Zhongtian's illness. He's dead for sure this time. There's no medicine that can save him. Let that Yi Jiu save him. Let's see if he can be saved. That Bai family elder said with a mocking expression. The surrounding Bai family members also let out faint chuckles. At this moment, Bai Changfeng shook his head and waved his hand. I'm not worried that Yi Jiu can save Hu Zhongtian. He naturally knew what was wrong with Hu Zhongtian's illness. After all, he was the one who personally handed the medicine to the second elder of family Hu. However, I'm worried about Hu Fei. As his voice rang out, the surrounding hall fell silent. Hu Fei, Hu Zhongtian's eldest son. He was the true young master of family Hu. If not for the fact that he was in a coma, paralyzed in bed, and had been in a vegetative state for more than 10 years, they wouldn't have dared to have any ideas about family Hu. After all, back then, Hu Fei was a rather famous genius in Savage City and even in the entire Western Wastelands. Back then, everyone agreed that if Hu Fei took over family Hu's strength would definitely double, and they might even become one of the top families. Unfortunately, Hu Fei didn't have such an opportunity. Now, he was the bargaining chip that they used to threaten Hu Zhongtian to hand over family Hu's item. If Hu Fei was really saved and awakened, then their plan would be severely hampered. After all, Hu Fei was the rightful heir of family Hu. Without this bargaining chip, Hu Zhongtian, who was being pressured by them, might not give them the item even if he chose to fight to the death. Thinking of this, the faces of the Bai family members suddenly became serious. Family head. I don't think that kid has the ability to do this, right? The Bai family elder who spoke up just now said. He didn't believe that a kid who was still wet behind the ears could do this. After all, Hu Fei had been in a coma for more than 10 years. He was no different from a living corpse. Hu Zhongtian had tried everything he could think of, but he still couldn't help him recover. How could a mere youth do it? What if he has something that can remove Hu Fei's current condition? Bai Changfeng's voice was cold. No matter what, during such a critical period, I will not allow anyone to ruin our Bai family's plans. This matter must be dealt with. Furthermore, Hu Fei's awakening was related to another matter. Bai Changfeng thought of the reason why Hu Fei was in a coma, and his face became more solemn. He waved his hand and dismissed everyone in the room. All right, I'll talk to Feng personally and see how she's going to deal with it. You guys can leave first. Yes. Hearing that he was going to look for Bai Feng, everyone in the Bai family immediately agreed. Sometimes, Bai Feng's orders were even more effective than Bai Changfeng's. After all, the Bai family's rise was entirely due to Bai Feng. Not only that, but she was also the young mistress of the Huo family, a top-notch family. In the past few years, the Huo family had completely entered the category of the top families in Wildland City. Although their strength couldn't be compared to the top families in Wildland City and the far west wilderness, they were still above the other families in Wildland City. Chapter 1272. The group dispersed, and Bai Changfeng immediately went to look for Bai Feng. She had already received news about family Hu from the Huo family. After all, she was the one who remembered and told Bai Changfeng about that thing. Naturally, she was very concerned about family Hu's situation. Especially, after Chu Lingfeng appeared. I didn't expect that Hu Yennyang would still be able to save the child under such circumstances. It's a pity that she gave birth to a retard. Bai Feng snorted coldly. She was lying on her side on a low-key and luxurious chaise lounge, her 10 fingers resting on the armrest. Her fingernails were painted a bright red, as bright as blood. All right, leave this matter to me. You don't have to worry about it. Hu Fei had been struggling at death's door for so many years, and it was time for him to die. As for Hu Yennyang, if she wanted to come back and seek death, Bai Feng would be happy to fulfill her wish. After all, she had been waiting for so many years, to get rid of all future troubles forever. As for Luo Qingtong and the others, Bai Feng didn't care about them at all. They were just a few clowns. How powerful could they be if they could mix with a retard like Chu Lingfeng? Bai Feng wanted to kill Hu Fei, but it was just a precaution. She didn't really think that Luo Qingtong and the others could save Hu Fei. After she sent Bai Changfeng away, she sent out a letter. Outside Wildland City, in an extremely secluded valley, a group of people received a letter from Bai Feng. The sect leader has ordered us to kill family Hu's Hu Fei. We can't let anyone find out. Do it today. A leader in a black robe who looked sinister said. Yes. The other people, who were wearing the same black robes as him and looked very evil and sinister, all agreed. As for family Hu, Luo Qingtong woke up early in the morning and was invited to Hu Zhongtian's room. Hu Zhongtian looked very excited. Thank you for saving my life, young master. Hu Zhongtian had tried the medicinal bath that Luo Qingtong gave to Chu Lingfeng last night. When he woke up this morning, he felt much more relaxed. Ever since he fell seriously ill, he had never felt this refreshed feeling again. How could he not be surprised and excited? Only now did he realize that Luo Qingtong's words about saving his life were not baseless. Luo Qingtong looked indifferent. She replied softly. You will soak in this medicinal bath every day. When your body is almost fully recovered, I will remove the growing bone fragments in your body. Only Luo Qingtong would dare to perform this operation in this strange world. If it were anyone else, even if they could see Hu Zhongtian's condition, they wouldn't be able to save him. After all, the broken bones and flesh of the chest and lungs had grown together. Without Luo Qingtong's bloody eyes, who would dare to perform such an operation on Hu Zhongtian? As for using the bone-melting medicinal liquid, that was even more impossible. Those broken bones were also Hu Zhongtian's own bones. Once the bone-melting medicinal liquid was used, the bones would be destroyed. Once the bone-melting medicinal liquid was used, the other bones in Hu Zhongtian's body would melt as well. At that time, Hu Zhongtian would still have to face death. Therefore, after the Bai family had decided on that vicious plan, they had already determined that Hu Zhongtian was going to die. That was why they had unscrupulously forced him to hand over that thing from the Hu family. But now, it was impossible for them to succeed. Thank you, young master. Hu Zhongtian was very excited. Chapter 1273. Young master, he looked at Luo Qingtong with a hesitant expression. I wonder if young master can help again. Take a look at my son, Hu Fei. Hu Fei. Luo Qingtong looked at Hu Zhongtian and suddenly remembered that family who still had a young master, Hu Fei, who was Yan Nyang's brother. She had heard people say at the city gate that he was paralyzed in bed like a cripple. If it weren't for this, the Hu clan wouldn't have fallen to such a state. After all, as long as Hu Fei was around, even if Hu Zhongtian was seriously ill, ordinary people would not dare to bully them. Master. Chu Lingfeng called out pitifully, his eyes imploring. He was left by Luo Qingtong in the main courtyard to take care of Hu Zhongtian yesterday. The latter thought that he was going to die and showed his love for Chu Lingfeng. Although Chu Lingfeng was a fool, he knew who was sincere to him. He could not help but speak up for Hu Zhongtian. Let's go take a look. Luo Qingtong did not mind treating one more person. Moreover, Hu Fei was Yan Nyang's brother. The group of people arrived at the east side courtyard where Hu Fei lived. For so many years, Hu Fei had been living here and was taken care of by someone. From time to time, Hu Zhongtian would come to see him. Luo Qingtong followed Hu Zhongtian into Hu Fei's room. As soon as she stepped in, Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. In this room, she smelled a familiar scent that she had often dealt with in her previous life. Voodoo. Luo Qingtong looked at the person lying on the bed. The latter's face was pale, but his face was handsome. It could be seen that when Hu Fei was young, he was definitely a handsome young master. However, Luo Qingtong did not pay attention to this, but the faint scent of the voodoo worm on his body. In her previous life, Luo Qingtong had dealt with voodoo many times. The latter was different from ordinary poisons. It was usually used to bewitch people and control their minds. It was especially popular in the southwest. With Luo Qingtong's ability, there were naturally people who wanted to use voodoo to control her. Unfortunately, for Luo Qingtong's pair of blood-red eyes, she was the nemesis of Gu techniques. The damage that the other party could inflict on her was not even comparable to a normal poison technique. After all, Luo Qingtong was poisoned and needed to be cured. As for the Gu technique, what was the use of a Gu technique that had been seen through? Luo Qingtong would never give those Gu worms a chance to enter her body. In his previous life, the Gu clan and the Gu god sect in the southwest region were completely defeated by Luo Qingtong. They had to take a detour when they saw her. Luo Qingtong smiled as she thought of this. Initially, he was wondering what kind of illness Hu Fei was suffering from and whether it would take a lot of effort to treat him. But now, it seemed that Hu Fei wasn't poisoned at all. Instead, he was poisoned by a Gu. Since that was the case, things were simple. Luo Qingtong fixed her eyes on Hu Fei. The blood-red light in her eyes flickered slightly. Through the pupil technique in her eyes, Luo Qingtong could clearly see that there was a tiny worm in Hu Fei's mind. That worm's body was as thin as a cicada's wing. It looked transparent. However, it was faintly emitting a golden light. There were 6 pairs of golden wings on its body, flapping gently. That Gu worm seemed to be in a deep sleep. There was almost no movement. Chapter 1274. Following the undulation of its breathing, a faintly discernible aura and soul energy was absorbed into its body. This Gu worm was absorbing Hu Fei's life energy and soul energy. No wonder the latter had been unconscious all this while. If this carried on, Hu Fei could only sleep until he died. All of his soul energy and life force were absorbed by that Gu worm to support its growth. Luo Qingtong looked at that Gu worm and suddenly narrowed her eyes. This Gu worm is a Gu mother. Her voice was slightly surprised. In her previous life, Luo Qingtong had interacted with Gu techniques and naturally knew that a Gu mother was the most difficult to nurture. Among tens of millions of Gu worms, there might not even be a Gu mother. But if it was nurtured and carefully raised to raise its strength, it would definitely be a great weapon. Other things aside, a Gu mother could breed Gu worms. The child worms it bred would completely listen to its orders. That was to say, having a Gu mother was equivalent to having a Gu worm army. Not only that, a Gu mother's status among the Gu worms was like a queen. Under the circumstances where there was no other Gu mother present, it could command all the Gu worms. Even if they were not bred by it, it was still the same. Luo Qingtong did not expect that this goo worm in Hu Fei's body was actually a goo mother. But there were also differences among goo mothers. This goo mother in Hu Fei's body seemed to be a low-grade one. But even so, it was still very rare and precious. That person behind the curtain who planted the goo was really willing. But she probably also felt that it was impossible for anyone to see through the existence of this goo worm, right? Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. Since the other party had sent such a huge gift, then she would not stand on ceremony and accept it. Luo Qingtong walked to Hu Fei's side and wanted to remove the goo worm for him. Just at this moment, buzz. A faintly discernible sound wave that ordinary people could not hear drifted in from the outside. Luo Qingtong's footsteps suddenly stopped. She saw the changes of that goo mother in Hu Fei's mind. A sharp sound wave that ordinary people couldn't hear rang out, and the goo mother seemed to have been awakened. It abruptly opened its eyes. Gee! Amidst the ear-piercing shriek, a huge phantom of golden wings appeared behind the goo queen. Then, it took a deep breath and tried to suck away all of Hu Fei's life force and soul power. Its belly was bulging greatly. Seeing this scene, Luo Qingtong's expression suddenly froze. She abruptly took a step forward, raised her hand, and sent dozens of energy streams that were as thin as cow hair into Hu Fei's body. Under the control of Luo Qingtong's mind, this energy was even more effective than ordinary golden needles. The moment it entered Hu Fei's body, it immediately sealed all his vital acupoints, as well as all the hidden meridians that his life force and soul force had to pass through to enter his mind. At the same time, Luo Qingtong raised her hand and slapped Hu Fei's forehead. That place was the most vulnerable part of a person's skull. Once they were hit by someone, their brains would immediately burst open and they would die. When Hu Zhongtian saw this scene, he immediately became extremely anxious. Young master. Don't. He did not know why Luo Qingtong suddenly attacked Hu Fei and subconsciously wanted to stop her, but he was blocked by Chu Lingfeng. Grandfather, don't worry. Master will not let anything happen to uncle. Chu Lingfeng also did not know why Luo Qingtong did this, but he believed in Luo Qingtong and naturally would not let Hu Zhongtian obstruct her actions. You. Sigh. Get out of the way. Hu Zhongtian was extremely anxious, but he could not attack his grandson and instantly felt his insides burning. Chapter 1275. Gee! A sharp cry instantly resounded in the room. The energy in Luo Qingtong's 5 fingers was fierce. The moment she pressed on Hu Fei's head, the energy penetrated the small gap in his skull and entered the depths of his brain. Like a cage, the queen of venomous insects was trapped inside. Then, Luo Qingtong's 5 fingers sucked and pulled, and the goo mother's mouthpart was pulled out from Hu Fei's brain. Not only that, Luo Qingtong raised her hand and slapped the back of Hu Fei's head. Ugh! Hu Fei, who was lying on the bed unconscious, suddenly got up and bent over. He opened his mouth and spat out the goo mother. Fei, Seeing this scene, Hu Zhongtian's face was filled with surprise and joy. He hurried over to Hu Fei and saw him open his eyes in a daze. Father. Hu Fei glanced at Hu Zhongtian, then collapsed and lost consciousness. Fei, Hu Zhongtian saw this scene and panicked. He hurriedly looked at Luo Qingtong. Young master, he no longer dared to doubt Luo Qingtong's ability. He looked at her with reverence and anticipation. It's fine. He just lost too much of his life force and soul aura. He just needs to recuperate and replenish it. If not for Luo Qingtong's quick action, Hu Fei's energy would have been completely sucked dry by the goo mother. Adding to the fact that he had been sucked dry for so many years, it was normal for such a situation to occur. Now that the goo mother had been removed, he only needed to recuperate. The life force and soul aura that he had lost would naturally be slowly replenished. Luo Qingtong's words calmed Hu Fei down. At this moment, he finally had the time to pay attention to the goo mother that Hu Fei had spat out. He saw that the goo mother was trapped in the cage formed by Luo Qingtong's energy. It constantly screeched and struggled to return to Hu Fei's body, but it could not break free. Young master, what is this? Hu Zhongtian looked at the insect and had a vague guess in his heart. Could this insect be the culprit that caused Hu Fei to fall into a coma? Goo. Luo Qingtong looked at the goo mother trapped in her energy cage, and her lips curled up slightly. She raised her hand and sucked the goo queen into her hand. Then, she bit her middle finger and drew a mark on its forehead. That was the goo controlling method that Luo Qingtong learned when she fought with the Goo Gods sect in the southwest in her previous life. At that time, the Goo Gods sect and an international organization conspired to control Luo Qingtong, but she saw through it. Luo Qingtong destroyed that organization and learned about the Goo Gods sect. She went to Nanjiang to take revenge and turned the whole Nanjiang upside down. Many Goo families were destroyed, and the Goo God sect's believers and Goo Mother were unable to do anything to Luo Qingtong. In the end, with the help of the army, Luo Qingtong stopped in front of the headquarters. At that time, the Goo Mother that Luo Qingtong saw had been fed by the Goo God sect for many years. It was several meters long and its body was very huge. The Goo controlling method that Luo Qingtong used was learned from that Goo Mother. It would be a piece of cake to use it on this Goo Mother. Chapter 1276. Luo Qingtong lifted her hand and removed the energy cage around the Mother of Goo Poison. The Mother of Goo Poison flew in a circle on the spot and landed quietly on Luo Qingtong's shoulder. Buzz. Perhaps because there was no response from the Mother of Goo Poison, or because the connection with the Mother of Goo Poison had been lost, the formless sound wave from afar became more and more obvious and sharp. Even Hu Zhongtian, Chu Lingfeng, and the rest seemed to have sensed something. Master. Chu Lingfeng looked at Luo Qingtong. The latter glanced at the direction where the invisible sound wave came from, and then moved in that direction. You don't have to follow me. When dealing with Goo Poison, it was not useful to have more people. Instead, it was easy to become a disaster and be controlled by the other party. Luo Qingtong's figure followed the formless sound wave and flew out of Wilderness City. Outside Wilderness City, in a remote and hidden valley, a black-robed leader kept blowing a short whistle in his mouth. The sharp sound wave that ordinary people could not hear constantly drifted out from the short whistle, but he did not receive any response. What's going on? Why did we suddenly lose contact with the Mother of Goo Poison? The black-robed man's expression was very ugly. He had just received a response from the Mother of Goo Poison, confirming that it had been successfully awakened. But suddenly, he lost the Mother of Goo Poison's response. It was as if someone had cut off the connection between him and the Mother of Goo Poison. But the Mother of Goo Poison was something that the sect master had fed with his heart. This Goo Poison flute was the reason why he could control it. Other than the sect master, who else could cut off the connection between the Goo Poison flute and the Mother of Goo Poison? The black-robed man was puzzled. He didn't know what had happened. Could it be that the sect master suddenly changed his mind and stopped the Mother of Goo Poison from killing Hu Fei? But once the Mother of Goo Poison was awakened, it would not fall into a coma again. By then, Hu Fei's abnormal behavior would definitely attract the attention of others. What was the sect master doing? Didn't he say that he couldn't let anyone find out about Hu Fei? The man in the black robe was bewildered. He waved his hand and said to the people around him, "Let's go to the family Hu and have a look. Let's see what's going on." However, before they could make a move, a figure had already gracefully appeared before them like a ghost. "There's no need to go. Are you looking for the Goo Mother? I've already delivered it to you." As Luo Qingtong spoke, she raised her hand. The goo mother perched on her shoulder immediately flapped its 6 pairs of golden wings and flew up, landing on the tip of her index finger. That lithe and nimble body that flickered with a faint golden light caused the faces of the black-robed people on the opposite side to be shocked. You! Goo Mother! The group of voodoo sect disciples never thought that the goo poison mother, which they couldn't control without the help of the goo poison flute, would be so obedient and quietly resting on the young man's finger. Who was the other party? How could he control the goo poison mother? The voodoo sect disciples were horrified. Luo Qingtong's gaze swept past them indifferently. Then, she shook her finger. Go! As her voice rang out, the goo poison mother flapped its wings and flew toward the group of voodoo sect disciples. Not good. Chapter 1277. The black-robed leader's complexion abruptly changed. He hurriedly shouted, "Quickly throw away all the goo worms on your body, then scatter goo repellent powder all over your body, run." Before he could finish his words, a series of blood-curdling screams came from the mouths of the black-robed men beside him. The containers containing the goo worms on their bodies were shattered. Goo worms flew out from the containers, bit their flesh, and drilled into their flesh. In an instant, mournful screams sounded everywhere. The voodoo sex people who controlled the goo worms tasted the backlash of the goo worms. In the depths of the valley, where the voodoo sect's headquarters was located, sharp screams faintly came from there. Obviously, the voodoo sect's people inside also suffered the backlash of the goo worms. This was the drawback of controlling the goo. Although they could obtain strength far greater than others through the use of the goo worms, at the same time, they were also limited by this aspect. Even if someone's strength was inferior to them, as long as they used a goo worm of a higher level than their own, they would immediately suffer the backlash of their own goo worms. This backlash was simply out of their control. Unless they were prepared beforehand, they absolutely couldn't resist it. And the more powerful the goo worm, the greater the damage caused by the backlash. At this moment, the voodoo sex people were already wailing. You! The black-robed leader, who was the first to react, looked at Luo Qingtong with a gaze that couldn't be described as simple shock. The other party's manner of controlling the goo mother was so calm. If he didn't know that this goo mother belonged to the sect master, he was afraid he would have mistakenly thought that this goo mother was cultivated by the other party. How could this be? This goo mother was fed with the blood of the sect master's heart. It was reasonable to say that it absolutely wouldn't listen to other people's orders. Even they had to use the goo flute personally bestowed by the sect master, which was stained with the blood of the sect master's heart, to be able to control it. How did the other party manage to control it and make it obediently listen to orders? The black-robed leader was just desperately blowing the goo flute in his mouth, trying to stop the goo mother's actions, but the latter simply didn't listen to the goo flute's orders. In other words, it had been taken away from the sect master. It no longer belonged to the sect master. How could this be? The leader of the black-robed men looked extremely flustered. Because his reaction was the fastest, he sprinkled goo repellent powder all over his body. The goo worms on his body were also thrown to the ground along with the utensils. That was how he managed to escape the disaster. But at this moment, under the command of the goo mother, the surrounding goo worms were clearly gathering more and more. Once the number of goo worms reached a certain number, there would be goo worms that would ignore the threat of the goo powder on him and attack him. At that time, he would be dead for sure. Thinking of this, the face of the leader in the black robe became more and more panicked. He glanced at Luo Qingtong and rejoiced inwardly that the other party's strength was not strong. Under such circumstances, he might be able to escape. With that thought in mind, the leading black-robed man immediately leaped up. His palms were like the wind as he killed all the goo worms surrounding him. Then, he rushed towards the entrance of the valley where Luo Qingtong was. Scram! Chapter 1278. This black-robed man's true cultivation was around upper-grade martial spirit realm. In Savage City, it was already considered pretty good. Seeing his palm coming over, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed. Just as she was about to move, boom. A strong gust of wind suddenly brushed past her ear, swept out from behind her, and slammed into the leader of the black-robed men. Bang! That black-robed man was blown away by this seemingly light breeze, but in fact, it was extremely violent. He vomited blood and flew out. Tong Tong. Are you okay? Yusi Wang's figure appeared beside Luo Qingtong. I'm fine. Luo Qingtong looked at the black-robed man who was blown away by Yusi Wang. She saw his body ruthlessly smashed into a group of black-robed men who died miserably with goo worms crawling all over their bodies. Then, a sharp scream sounded. It was the goo-repelling powder on his body that was blown away by Yusi Wang's attack. Feeling that there was no threat on his body, those goo worms controlled by the goo mother immediately swarmed over, turning him into a goo man. Following Luo Qingtong's gaze, Yusi Wang's expression slightly froze. Tong Tong, these people were all killed by you. He looked at those miserable corpses. If he didn't see wrongly, these people should be from the voodoo sect. This sect's strength in the far west wilderness was not weak. Their ability to control goo worms was very mysterious, and they killed demon beasts very quickly. He didn't expect that they would all die in the hands of Luo Qingtong, and in such a short time. Yusi Wang looked at the goo worms lying on those corpses, and his heart was slightly surprised. Could it be that Luo Qingtong also knew how to control goo worms? Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent as she replied. Yusi Wang could be considered as half of her people, and he had already seen these goo worms. Luo Qingtong didn't intend to hide it from him. She raised her hand and called back the goo mother. As for the other goo worms, she asked the goo mother to order them to leave and summon them when needed. Those goo worms obeyed Luo Qingtong's command and left. A large cloud of goo worms gathered and left, causing Yusi Wang to widen his eyes slightly. Did you rush here just to deal with these people from the voodoo sect? Yusi Wang looked at Luo Qingtong. He followed Luo Qingtong as soon as he got the news that she had left. He hadn't expected her to be someone from the voodoo sect. Furthermore, he had one alone. Yusi Wang looked at Luo Qingtong commanding those goo worms as if they were her arms, and he didn't know what to say. The voodoo sect could only be considered as a mid-tier force in the Western Desolate region. However, their ability to control poisonous insects was extremely powerful. Ordinary forces would need to go all out to deal with a demon beast, but they only needed to send a few people with goo worms. Because of this, the voodoo sect's reputation in the far west wilderness had become extremely fearsome. Ordinary people didn't dare to provoke them. Why would Luo Qingtong go against them? Moreover, her ability to control goo worms seemed to be above the voodoo sect's people. One must know that before the voodoo sect appeared, no one could control goo worms. Even the word goo originated from the voodoo sect. Yusi Wang looked at Luo Qingtong, but the latter's expression was indifferent. The strange things on Hu Fei's body were caused by them, so I naturally have to deal with them. What? Chapter 1279. Hu Fei has been in a coma for so many years because of the voodoo sect. The surprise in his words did not seem to be fake. Luo Qingtong suddenly raised her eyebrows. You don't know. Goo worms can burrow into a person's body and control their mind, making them suffer a fate worse than death. Using a goo worm directly as an attack is the most inferior way to use it. The terrible thing about the goo technique is that you don't know when you have been parasitized by the goo worm. Of course, this generally works when the other party is unprepared. Once the other party is prepared, it is not so useful. Moreover, if the strength of the expert is strong enough, such as the sage realm and above, even if they are parasitized, as long as the goo worm is not of a relatively high level like the goo mother, it will be discovered almost immediately and then forced out. In the 24th century, Luo Qingtong dealt with the goo god sect and used this method to control a lot of people. Luo Qingtong has a lot of contact, so she knows the methods of the goo technique very well. I don't know. Yu Si Huang looked at Luo Qingtong with deep eyes. He doesn't know all the things the latter said. Not only him, but those who know the existence of the voodoo sect also don't know that the other party's goo technique has such a use. The people of the voodoo sect hide very well. Those who have contact with them only see the scene of them controlling the goo worm to attack directly. Although the scene is very scary, it also makes people think that their goo worm is just a kind of attack method. Now that I heard from you, they can even control the goo worm to hide in a person's body. I'm afraid they have done a lot of things secretly. No wonder in these years, the voodoo sect suddenly jumped up, and their ranking among the many forces in the Western wilderness is not bad. One had to know that it was extremely difficult to become outstanding overnight in the far west wilderness. Those forces in the Western wilderness are either supported by a strong force behind them, or they have been entrenched here for God knows how many years, accumulating their strength layer by layer. The strength of the voodoo sect is rising so fast, to say that they are doing something secretly, Yu Si Huang absolutely does not believe. Whether they are doing something or not, we will know when we go to their headquarters to check. Luo Qingtong said as she rushed into the depths of the valley. This valley was very remote and secluded in Wildland City. The voodoo sect had done a very good job of concealing their secrets. Therefore, they must have stored a lot of their secrets and resources. Luo Qingtong's figure flashed into the voodoo sect. At this moment, under the command of the goo mother, every Magus poison sect disciple was killed by the goo worms they had raised. Luo Qingtong walked over the corpses and scanned the entire voodoo sect. Soon, he found what he needed. I didn't expect Bai Feng to be the founder of the voodoo sect. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. She looked at the secret information placed in front of her. It clearly stated that Bai Feng was the sect master of the voodoo sect. Furthermore, the voodoo sect was founded by her. Once a disciple of the voodoo sect joined the sect, they would have to be loyal to Bai Feng. No betrayal. It's a pity that Bai Feng is quite cautious and did not leave anything that can prove her identity. And because there are no survivors, this secret cannot be used as evidence. Otherwise, with this, Yen Nyang's death can be avenged. Chapter 1280. This thing, when Yen Nyang comes, she will show it to her and see how to make use of it. Soon after, Luo Qingtong found a list on the side. It recorded the people who had been controlled by voodoo sect for so many years. The name list was densely packed, and it was a ghastly sight. It almost included all the big and small families in Savage City. Only the top few families did not make a move because they were afraid of being discovered. The voodoo sect's people had spread their tentacles all over the middle and lower levels of the families in Savage City. No wonder their rise was so fast. With the spies in those families, how could the voodoo sect's rise not be fast? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows as she looked at the list. Then she put it away with a smile. Now, all these things belong to her. With these, Tianxia's development in the Western Desolate region will be very fast. She had wanted to bring Tianxia's people to Savage City to see if there was a chance. Now it seems that the chance has come. Su Yu and the others did not need to return to Fenghua City. They could just directly take root here. Luo Qingtong will give the list of these people to her. At that time, she will be in contact with these people. After all, there are ready-made connections and channels. It would be a waste if she did not want them. After Luo Qingtong put away these two things, she searched the entire voodoo sect. These years, the voodoo sect's resources and items in the Western Desolate region were enough for Su Yu and the others to gain a foothold and expand in Savage City. Luo Qingtong looked at these and suddenly laughed. As for Yu Siwang, who was at the side, his face was filled with grief as he looked at her. Tong Tong, even if there is no merit, there is still hard work. I came from far away to help you. Shouldn't you give me a little reward for my hard work? Everyone who sees it has a share. Yu Siwang looked at Luo Qingtong. He was waiting for her to nod her head and immediately said that he did not need these things. As long as Luo Qingtong gave him a kiss as thanks, it would be enough. This time, he must not let that pig mess it up. He didn't want a kiss anymore. He wanted Tongtong's kiss. Luo Qingtong glanced at him. Everyone who saw it has a share. All right. She smiled and said to him, then I'll leave this place to you. She raised her hand and patted him on the shoulder. Then, she said with a smile, leaving the entire voodoo sect to you, I'm very generous, right? You're welcome. Oh right, remember to burn this place clean. You can do it. Luo Qingtong said and turned around with a smile. Leaving Yu Siwang in the same place, looking at her departing figure, his face was in a mess. He had been tricked again. Why was his life so hard? Yu Siwang's face was depressed. Not only did he not get any benefits, he even became a free cleanup worker. He was the dignified imperial sect master. Who could he complain to? Yu Siwang's heart was gloomy for a while, then he accepted his fate and began to clean up the mess. There weren't many people in this world who dared to order him, the leader of the imperial emperor sect, around. Tong Tong, you're amazing. I don't believe that I can't think of a way to get your kiss. Just as Yu Siwang was gloomily dealing with the voodoo sect's matters, Luo Qingtong had already rushed back to family Hu from outside Wild City. Once she returned to family Hu. Chapter 1281. Silver Bow. Luo Qingtong looked at the small figure that was rushing towards her and quickly reached out to catch it. Wasn't it sleeping under the blanket when she left? Did it come out to look for her? Just as Luo Qingtong was thinking this, she heard a voice not far away. Quick! It's over here. Catch it! As he spoke, a group of people suddenly ran towards her. Luo Qingtong looked at them and suddenly frowned. She hugged the little silver fox in her arms and raised her head to look at them. She saw that the group of people were wearing the clothes of family Hu's guards. However, when Luo Qingtong glanced at them, she realized that they were obviously not Hu Zhongtian's people from family Hu's main courtyard. She immediately knew what was going on. The group of people rushed towards Luo Qingtong. When they saw the young man holding the little fox, the group of family Hu's guards suddenly stopped 100 meters in front of Luo Qingtong. Hey! Let go of that little fox, our young master took a fancy to her first. The group of family Hu's guards recognized Luo Qingtong. When Luo Qingtong and the others barged into family Hu's main courtyard, these people were all present. Naturally, they knew that she was brought in by Chu Lingfeng and called Chu Lingfeng Big Brother. However, the image of Chu Lingfeng as a fool was deeply ingrained in their minds. Moreover, the second elder of family Hu's line of people had been in the main courtyard for too long. Almost everyone thought that the second elder of family Hu's line of people would definitely take control of family Hu. Even if Hu Zhongtian temporarily woke up and got better and recognized Chu Lingfeng, that would still be the case. The group of people shouted rudely and asked Luo Qingtong to let go of the little fox in her arms and hand it over to them. Behind them, a little boy who looked to be no more than 7 or 8 years old and had a very domineering expression rushed over in the arms of a guard. Seeing the silver fox in Luo Qingtong's arms, he shouted, "That is my silver fox. Let it go." Yours? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. She looked at the little silver fox in her arms. Silver baby. Luo Qingtong called out. She wanted to make sure that she didn't recognize the wrong fox. If it wasn't Yin Bao, then the fox would be returned to the other party. Yi Qianxian nestled in Luo Qingtong's arms with a gloomy expression. When he woke up, he didn't see Luo Qingtong. He wanted to go out to look for her. But this young fox's body was fun and couldn't resist the temptation. As soon as Yi Qianxian left the room, his body was seduced by a butterfly. That was right. It was just a butterfly. Only the heavens knew that when Yi Qianren saw her young fox body bouncing away with that butterfly, she felt an indescribable feeling of collapse. When he finally regained control of his body, a group of people suddenly ran out and said they wanted to catch him. If it wasn't for the fact that Yi Qianxian's body had turned into a young fox and he couldn't use the battle skills and attacks of a human, he would definitely let these people know what it meant to court death. He buried his head in Luo Qingtong's chest and didn't want to pay attention to the other party. Then what the hell was Silver Baby? He didn't want to admit that he had such a childish name, and that it was given by this woman. Yi Qianxian's face was gloomy. He irritably pulled at Luo Qingtong's clothes with all his strength. Her clothes were pulled to pieces and he finally raised his head to glare at her. Chapter 1282. It really is you. You mischievous little thing, running all over the place. You almost got caught, didn't you? Why are you throwing a tantrum? Luo Qingtong laughed as she pinched its little paws. The little fox's sharp claws were still scratching at her clothes, but when it saw her reach out, it immediately retracted its claws. Luo Qingtong looked at the little fox and suddenly felt that Yi Qianxian was extraordinarily well trained. This little fox looked so young, but it knew how to retract its claws and not hurt her when she reached out her hand. Yi Qianxian, the well-trained little fox, was speechless. Luo Qingtong held the little fox's two paws and gently rubbed them on her face. She then looked at the guards of family whose second elder and said, "This little silver fox is mine. You can leave now," Luo Qingtong said as she carried Yi Qianxian towards the main courtyard. The guards of the Hu clan's second elder looked at each other in dismay. When they saw the interaction between Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian, they knew that she was the owner of the little silver fox. But the young master. The group of people looked at the little boy. The little boy was getting down from the guard's back. When he saw Luo Qingtong carrying the little silver fox away, he became angry. "How dare you!" He pointed at Luo Qingtong and shouted, "Who said this little fox is yours? It appeared in Family Hu, so it belongs to Family Hu. I am the future heir of Family Hu, so your little silver fox is mine. Someone, come and take it," the little boy arrogantly ordered. He was Hu Bang's son. The latter had been designated as the heir of the second elder since he was young. And the second elder's branch of Family Hu believed that Family Hu would be theirs in the future. Therefore, this little boy was naturally very arrogant. In his opinion, so what if this little fox really belonged to Luo Qingtong? As long as she was in their Family Hu, she was his. This little boy was used to being overbearing in Family Hu's second elder's faction. When he saw Yi Qianxian, he naturally wanted to snatch it away. As for Luo Qingtong, if she dared to resist, he would just beat her to death. The little boy's expression was extremely domineering. Looking at the group of Family Hu's second elder's guards rushing towards her under his command, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly turned cold. Right at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared and blocked in front of Luo Qingtong. "Stop! You're not allowed to lay a hand on my lord, ninth brother." Chu Lingfang's tall figure stood in front of Luo Qingtong. He looked at the second elder's guards with an indescribable anger. "Get out of my way. You idiot. What right do you have to shout and shout here?" The little boy who was being carried by the guards looked at Chu Lingfeng with indescribable disdain and arrogance. "Don't think that you can be impudent here just because you've acknowledged your grandfather. In the future, this place will be our territory sooner or later. My grandfather said that when family head dies, he will immediately drive you away. Family who doesn't want an idiot like you and a slut like your mother. He spoke arrogantly. These words were naturally taught to him by the second elder and the others. As the little boy spoke, he immediately ordered the second elder's guards to attack Chu Lingfeng. Open it for this young master. Chapter 1283. Let's see who dares to touch them. As this voice sounded, a figure suddenly stepped in from the outside of the Hu clan's gate. Seeing that figure, Chu Lingfeng instantly cried out in surprise. Mother! The person who stepped into the family who was none other than Yan Nyang, who had rushed to the family who after receiving Luo Qingtong's message. At this moment, her eyes were full of power as she stepped into the family who. His sharp eyes glared angrily at the second elder's guards. The main branch of family who is still alive. I didn't know that the entire family who is under the control of second elder's faction. Collateral branch of the concubine. What right do you have to shout in the main residence of family who? What right do you have to attack my son and the guests of family who? Men. As Hu Yan Nyang's voice rang out, a group of people appeared behind her in an instant. These people were naturally those who came to seek refuge with Luo Qingtong when Hu Yannyang helped Luo Qingtong manage the Blackfield residence and properties. These people were either seeking medicine or fame. They were all willing to rely on Luo Qingtong. Unknowingly, the strength of the Blackfield residence and properties under Luo Qingtong's name was no weaker than the ordinary forces in the main city of the Blackfield. One must know that the forces that could gain a foothold in the main city of the Blackfield were at least at the level of commanderies. Above that were the properties set up by the major forces and families of the Holy Dynasty. As this group of people surged into the Hu clan, the guards of the Hu clan's second elder, who had yet to react, were immediately knocked to the ground, each and every one of them wailing endlessly. Wah! When the son of Hu Bang, who had been overbearing and arrogant just a moment ago, saw this scene, he immediately sat on the ground and rolled around, crying loudly. Grandfather! Grandfather! Come quickly! Someone is bullying me. He crushed a message talisman around his neck. Immediately, all of the second elder's people appeared near the entrance. What's going on? What happened? Who dares to bully my grandson? The second elder's voice was filled with rage. When Hu Bang was rescued, he only had a single breath left. Although he was barely saved, there was still a possibility that he would not be able to break through in the future. Not only that, but he also seemed to have suffered a great shock. He had become half crazy and half stupid. He was no different from a cripple. After suffering such a blow, the second elder was unable to recover for a long time. He had already treated Hu Bang's son like a treasure. This was because this was the only direct descendant of his bloodline. That was why he had specially brought him to his side this time. He was prepared to educate him so that he could inherit family whose family business in the future. At the same time, he was also prepared to keep an eye on him so that he wouldn't make any more mistakes. Now that he heard the other parties wailing, he was naturally furious. The second elder had already regarded the entire family Hu as his property. Naturally, he did not think that there was anyone here who could go against him or suppress him. Just as he was about to explode in rage and vent his anger on behalf of his grandson, he saw Yan Nyang, who had a dignified look on her face. Yan Nyang had taken charge of the Blackfield mansion for Luo Qingtong and dealt with the various forces of the Holy Dynasty and the Four Domains. She had already cultivated the dignity and bearing of a superior. Chapter 1284. What shocked him even more was that Yan Nyang had actually returned to family Hu. Furthermore, from the looks of things, she seemed to be doing quite well outside. If she wanted to enter family Hu and regain control of family Hu, then his branch would not have any advantage at all. As second elder thought of this, he suddenly felt a sense of unease. At this moment, he couldn't care less about his wailing grandson and hurriedly said to Hu Yennyang, "You've caused family Hu to be reduced to a laughingstock for so many years. You even got pregnant before marriage and gave birth to a retarded son. You actually have the face to return to family Hu and appear in front of us. If you don't want to bring any more trouble to family Hu, then get out of here immediately. Whether I get out or not, I don't need you to give me orders." Hu Yenyang's voice was cold. "I'm a direct descendant of family Hu. As long as my name hasn't been removed from the genealogy, I have the right to stand here. Instead, it's you who are from a concubine's branch who is above the direct descendant. What are you trying to do? This is family Hu's main residence. It's where we, the direct descendant, live. If you want to get out, the ones who should get out are you." At this point, Hu Yenyang waved her hand coldly and shouted, "Chase all of them out of family Hu." Hu Yenyang had learned some ruthless and unscrupulous ways from Luo Qingtong. Now that she had received news from Luo Qingtong and returned, she had already made up her mind to investigate what had happened that year. Naturally, she wouldn't be chased away by second elder's words. Furthermore, the person she had always felt guilty towards was Hu Zhongtian. As long as he forgave her and was willing to accept her back into the family, Hu Yenyang wouldn't care about what others said. Not to mention, second elder and the others were just about to attack Luo Qingtong and Chu Lingfeng. How could Hu Yenyang allow them to continue behaving so presumptuously in front of her? Following Hu Yenyang's command, the group of people behind her immediately closed in on second elder and the others. Seeing this, second elder's face filled with rage and he shouted sternly, "How dare you? This is family Hu. It's not a place for you outsiders to behave atrociously." He was about to make a move when a voice suddenly sounded from the side. "You also know that this is family Hu." Hu Zhongtian was gasping for breath as he allowed the secret guards to support him. He looked at the second elder and the others with anger on his face. "Chase all of them out of here." His son had woken up and his daughter had returned. Hu Zhongtian believed that he no longer had any regrets. He had sacrificed too much for the Hu clan in the first half of his life. Even his daughter had almost been separated by life and death. This time, he wasn't prepared to compromise. He would not hand the Hu clan over to anyone else. He would never allow anyone to obstruct Yen Nyang's return. Second elder's expression changed dramatically. He looked at Hu Zhongtian and said indignantly, "Are you really not going to spare a thought for family Hu? Hu Yennyang. She offended the Hu family when she got pregnant before marriage. She even made family Hu a laughingstock. Now that she has returned with that vile spawn, isn't this a slap to the Hu family's face? Big brother. Do you really want to see family Hu fall into eternal damnation? Furthermore, the elders will not agree to it." Second elder spared no effort in persuading and threatening Hu Zhongtian to change his mind. Chapter 1285. Moreover, the person who framed her was Bai Feng from the Bai family. She was already married to Hu Ting from the Hu family. If the Hu family wanted to pursue the matter from that year, they should look for their own daughter-in-law. What did it have to do with family Hu? As Hu Zhongtian thought of this, he became even angrier. He glared at second elder coldly and angrily. It was because of what second elder had said that his daughter had been wronged and had to leave her home. Now, second elder still wanted to use such words to pressure him. This time, he would absolutely not compromise. "You don't have to worry about any of this. After all, you are just a branch of the family. Isn't that so?" Hu Zhongtian said with a cold expression. He then coughed heavily and waved his hand to chase away the second elder and the others. All these years, Hu Zhongtian had kept all the forces in family Hu's main residence in the main courtyard. Hearing his order, all the secret guards and bodyguards under the control of the family head and the main bloodline rushed out and chased second elder and the rest out. Along with their luggage and belongings and family who, they were all thrown out. Family whose second elder and his people were in a very sorry state. They thought that they would be in control of family who sooner or later. Previously, they had moved into family whose main residence in a very high-profile manner and said that they were helping the family head manage things. At that time, Hu Zhongtian was seriously ill and Hu Fei had been in a vegetative state for more than 10 years. For family whose future, Hu Zhongtian had no choice but to agree. Now, he had completely thought it through. Even if he had to sacrifice the entire family who, he would never let his daughter be chased away. Moreover, Hu Fei had already woken up. The future of family who would naturally be led by someone from the main bloodline. There was no need for second elder's people to flaunt their power here. How could they humiliate his grandson and daughter? Moreover, Hu Zhongtian had already heard about what had happened on his way here. It was all because the little tyrant of family whose second elder wanted to snatch the little fox raised by Luo Qingtong. This had completely crossed Hu Zhongtian's bottom line. Her life and her son's awakening were all thanks to Luo Qingtong. The young man was so talented and had such outstanding medical skills that Hu Zhongtian couldn't even thank him enough. However, the people of family whose second elder's line treated him like this. How could Hu Zhongtian tolerate this? If they didn't chase out the people of second elder of family whose faction, who knew what they would do next? If he really hurt Luo Qingtong, how could he face his daughter and grandson? Hu Zhongtian mercilessly ordered the expulsion of the second elder's people. The group of people was chased away from the main residence in a sorry state. All the luggage was thrown out like trash, smashing into their faces and bodies. The second elder's people were so angry that their faces turned ashen. At this moment, the young master of the second elder's branch, who was originally sitting on the ground and pretending to cry loudly, waiting for his grandfather to come and vent his anger for him, looked at the scene around him and the scene of the luggage being thrown out. Instantly, he began to cry loudly with a "wah." This time, he was really crying. "I don't want to leave the main residence. I want to go back. I'm the future heir of family who. In the future, family who will be mine. Wah. Grandfather. Quickly go and kill those people who want to chase us out. Didn't you say it already? When they're all dead, family who will be ours." Chapter 1286. That young master continued to cry and make a fuss. The second elder's face turned ashen when he heard his words. He fiercely slapped out, sending the grandson whom he had always doted on flying. He scolded angrily, "So it's all because of you, evil creature." Second elder's heart was filled with anger. He was wondering why Hu Yannyang had made things difficult as soon as she came back, and why Hu Zhongtian didn't care about their old friendship. He didn't even care about the family Hu and the unconscious Hu Fei, and only wanted to drive them out. So it was all because of this evil creature. How could these words be casually said outside? Now, even if he wanted to blame Hu Zhongtian, it was impossible. Looking at the disdainful and contemptuous gazes of the crowd, second elder was so angry that he trembled. If it wasn't for the fact that that bastard was the only root left behind by Hu Bang, he would have slapped him to death. Second elder was filled with anger. He ordered people to carry that young master and hurriedly left this place. He couldn't stay here and be criticized by others. Moreover, Hu Zhongtian wanted to send them away like this, which was absolutely impossible. Hu Zhongtian wanted to pass on the family Hu to that slut Hu Yannyang and that idiot grandson of his. It also depended on whether the clan allowed it or not. Thinking of this, second elder's face suddenly became gloomy. The group of people were like stray dogs as they left dejectedly. After they left, Luo Qingtong calmly retracted her gaze. The reason why the young master lost his mind and spoke such words without thinking was because of the young master. It was completely because Luo Qingtong had just used her mental strength to stimulate his brain, causing the resentment and anger in his heart to magnify. Only then did he reveal the thoughts and plans of the second elder's lineage in front of so many people. Luo Qingtong didn't want to see second elder's faction in the family Hu anymore. They dared to steal her silver treasure. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. Out of all the gifts Yi Qianxian had given her, this was the only one that she liked the most. No one is allowed to move. Luo Qingtong lowered her head and kissed the silver fox's paws. She smiled and said, "Okay, the annoying people are gone. You can wander around the family Hu from now on. But you're too naughty. In order to prevent you from getting lost in the future, I have to get someone to watch over you. I don't want you to run away and get caught." Luo Qingtong said, chuckling and kissing the little guy's nose. Yi Qianxian raised his head and looked at the girl's face that was close to his, even though Luo Qingtong had already covered her face. However, in Yi Qianxian's eyes, Luo Qingtong's beauty couldn't be concealed at all. She was still as breathtaking, enchanting, and gorgeous as ever. He couldn't help but lick the girl's lips. He was very happy that Luo Qingtong thought so highly of him. After all, he knew that in Luo Qingtong's heart, he was just a little fox that he had given her. Luo Qingtong treated him so lovingly and carefully. Did that mean that she cared about his feelings? Humph. This woman doesn't mean what she says. Yi Qianxian's heart rippled, but he still hummed softly and proudly. Affected by the body of a young fox, the humming from his mouth turned into a soft cub's cry. It sounded very cute and cute. Before he could react, this body had already followed his heart and licked Luo Qingtong even harder. That pair of fluffy tails wagged happily. Chapter 1287. Yi Qianxian looked at his young fox body and couldn't bear to look at it. Unfortunately, he couldn't control the animal instincts of this body. Forget it, this cuteness was for this woman to see anyway. Yi Qianxian thought to himself in despair. He gave up on suppressing his young fox instincts. Luo Qingtong chuckled at the silver fox's series of fawning actions. Especially when she saw the disdain and displeasure in the silver fox's eyes, but his body was honestly expressing its joy to her. She felt even happier. This guy was so cute and proud. It really had the same personality as Yi Qianxian. Was he really the one who taught it? As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she chuckled even more happily. While the woman and the fox were interacting, Hu Yannyang and Hu Zhongtian had already recognized each other. The two of them were crying uncontrollably. After finally controlling herself, Hu Yannyang walked in front of Luo Qingtong and respectfully bowed to her. Her eyes were red as she said, "Thank you, ninth young lord, for helping our family Hu." Knowing that Luo Qingtong's identity couldn't be revealed, Hu Yannyang used the title Chu Lingfeng used for Luo Qingtong. Chu Lingfeng could call Luo Qingtong ninth brother, but she couldn't call Luo Qingtong by her pseudonym. She immediately used ninth young lord to be respectful and polite. Seeing her respectful attitude, the people of family Hu didn't think much of it. However, the people who followed Hu Yannyang to the Blackfield mansion were surprised. Not because of anything else, but because of Hu Yannyang's current status in the Blackfield of the Empire of Qin. Even the city lord of the Blackfield had to treat her with respect. There was no need to even mention the strong people of the Holy Dynasty. They didn't expect her to be so respectful to the young man in front of them. They didn't know who he was. Could it be that he came from the Blackfield? As these people thought about it, their gazes towards Luo Qingtong became more cautious. Okay. Luo Qingtong didn't care about their gazes. She just faintly responded and walked towards Hu Zhongtian's courtyard with the silver fox in her arms. There were too many people here, and many things were inconvenient to talk about. Luo Qingtong carried the silver fox to the main hall and sat down. Hu Zhongtian and Yan Yang had already dismissed the people around them and sat down with Chu Lingfeng in front of Luo Qingtong. Mistress. Hu Yannyang looked at Luo Qingtong and hesitated. She had too many things she wanted to ask, but in the end, she didn't know what to ask first. She had just learned from Hu Zhongtian everything that had happened over the years. She didn't expect that after she left, so many things had happened to family Hu. Yan Nyang's heart was filled with regret. For a long time, because of guilt and because of the pursuit, Hu Yannyang didn't dare to pay attention to family Hu. She was afraid that she couldn't help but want to come back and bring unnecessary trouble to family Hu and her father. Who would have thought that family Hu would have such a huge change? If it weren't for Luo Qingtong coming to the far west wilderness and involving the Holy King's tomb, Yan Yang wouldn't have asked Luo Qingtong to help take care of family Hu, and she wouldn't have known what had happened to family Hu. If that was the case, wouldn't she not know that her father and elder brother had been killed by someone? Thinking of this, Hu Yanyang's heart suddenly felt a burst of grief. Chapter 1288. This is what I obtained from the voodoo sect. Take a look for yourselves. By the way, the voodoo sect is the main culprit who planted goo in your elder brother's body, causing him to be in a coma for more than 10 years. And the person behind them is Bai Feng. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she spread out the secret information she obtained from the voodoo sect in front of Hu Yenyang. Bai Feng's ambition is not small. Apart from your elder brother, all the big and small families in Wilderness City are under her control. Most of those people belong to the middle management of those families. They hold real power but do not attract too much attention. It is very convenient for them to work for her and provide her with information and resources. This is the reason why the voodoo sect has grown so quickly over the years. However, she seems to be very wary of your elder brother. She did not use ordinary goo worms on him. Instead, she used the goo mother. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she looked at Hu Yenyang and said, "You probably do not know what the goo mother represents. Having the goo mother means that one can control all goo worms below the level of the goo mother. The fact that Bai Feng used the goo mother on your elder brother proves that she holds your elder brother in high regard and is very wary of him. She is afraid that someone will discover that she has done something to your elder brother. That is why she planted the goo mother on him. The goo mother is different from ordinary goo worms. Once it is awakened, it will kill the host. That is why your elder brother has been in a coma for so many years. He is not like other people who are awake and controlled by the goo worms in their bodies." Luo Qingtong did not think that Bai Feng would use such a precious goo mother to harm Hu Fei just to make him fall into a coma and become a vegetable for more than 10 years. She did not think that Bai Feng did it unintentionally. It was very likely that Hu Fei knew something about Bai Feng, especially about how she had dealt with Hu Yenyang. That was why Bai Feng treated him like this. The reason why she used the goo mother to make him fall into a coma instead of killing him directly was because she was wary of the man who had taken Yan Nyang's virginity. If that was the case, then everything made sense. Bai Feng had already received news of that man's arrival. That was why she sent people to kill Yan Nyang. During this process, Hu Fei should have discovered some clues. In order to prevent her actions from being exposed, Bai Feng had used the mother of goo poison to turn Hu Fei into a vegetable. White Phoenix. As soon as Luo Qingtong finished speaking, Hu Yenyang and Hu Zhongtian's eyes turned red. They did not doubt Luo Qingtong's words. It was too much of a coincidence that Hu Fei had fainted. Just when Yan Nyang went missing and that person delivered the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb to him. Coupled with the evidence of the voodoo sect that Luo Qingtong had placed in front of them, even if Hu Fei hadn't woken up yet and personally confirmed this matter, they already had no doubts. Ha! Hu Yenyang laughed with a sorrowful look on his face. He laughed so hard that tears came out of his eyes. It turns out that the person whom I had wholeheartedly helped and treated as a sister was the one who had caused me the most misery. Bai Feng. What have I done wrong to you? Why are you doing this to me? Her eyes were red and her laughter was choked with sobs. All these years, Hu Yannyang had always wondered who had hated her so much that they had caused her to fall into such a state. When she had received Luo Qingtong's message, she had still been in disbelief. Chapter 1289. Hu Yannyang had always been grateful to her all these years. Even when she had been hunted down and almost died in the hands of the attackers, she had never thought that it would be Bai Feng who had sent them. Now that she thought about it, Bai Feng was the first to arrive when she was in trouble. She had even brought the Huo family who with her. She had said that she was worried about her safety and had specially come looking for her. At that time, Yin Yang had been completely disheartened and had viewed that night as a humiliation. She had never been willing to think about it. Now that she thought about it, if Bai Feng had even the slightest bit of consideration for her, she would not have brought the Huo family along. After all, she had not returned for the entire night. Something could have happened. If she had brought the Huo family along at this time, she would not be able to explain herself even if she had not lost her virginity. Furthermore, Bai Feng had hugged her and cried the moment she had entered the house. She had said that she was sorry for not finding her in time and that she had been bullied. However, that man had not been by her side at that time and she had been fully dressed. How had Bai Feng been so sure that she had lost her virginity? If it had not been for her words, Hu Yannyang would not have fallen into such an embarrassing situation. Family who would not have lost face in front of everyone. Bai Feng had taken advantage of the fact that she was heartbroken and unwilling to think about the past, so she had not discovered these suspicious points. How could she have done it so brazenly? Hu Yannyang's heart was dripping with blood as the unbearable memories of the past were brutally torn apart. If someone wants to harm you, why would she care if you treat her well? She only thinks that you have not treated her well enough and wishes that everything that belongs to you belongs to her. She will only be satisfied when she stomps you to the bottom of the mud. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. Wasn't that Luo Qingtong the same? She had treated Luo Xinning with all her heart, but in the end, her cultivation had been destroyed and she had been thrown to a bunch of trash. Some people's desires were limitless. They would never be satisfied unless you gave everything you had to her. Even so, she might still think that you had given her too little. And if you don't give it to her, she will think that all the things you gave her before were all an act, that you were giving her charity. She would want to stomp you to the bottom of the mud. There was a unified term for this type of person, and that was ingrate. And Luo Qingtong would never be soft-hearted towards these people. Whose things were not things? It's mine. Why should I give it to you? I'm willing to give it to you because I'm a good person. If I'm not willing and dare to come up and snatch it, then I'll chop off all my hands. As for the information about the voodoo sect, I'll leave it to you to decide what to do. As for the list, I will give it to Su Yu so that Tian Xia can develop further. If you need anything, just go to her. Luo Qingtong said to Hu Yannyang. As one of her people, she could let Hu Yannyang know and use these resources, but it didn't mean that she needed to share them with family who. Family who was family who, and Hu Yannyang was Hu Yannyang. This was something that Luo Qingtong had always understood. She also hoped that Hu Yannyang wouldn't get mixed up. Yes. Understanding the meaning behind Luo Qingtong's words, Hu Yannyang wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and responded respectfully. As a master, Luo Qingtong had already done everything that she could. Hu Yannyang didn't have any complaints in her heart. She also didn't dare to let Luo Qingtong share her things with family who. If it wasn't for Luo Qingtong, family who might have already been destroyed. What else could she ask for? Chapter 1290. You deal with Baifeng's matter yourself. In addition, help me investigate the Saint King's tomb and see what's going on. Luo Qingtong's fingers tapped on the table. She knew from Bai Jintang that the Saint King's tomb had been leaked. The one who leaked the news of the Saint King's tomb was the top family in Wilderness City, the Ouyang family. The latter was the head of the top families in Wilderness City. Their strength was very strong. It was said that there was a sage master in the family, but no one knew whether it was true or not. The Ouyang family was the first batch of pioneers to come to the far west wilderness. They also had a part in the establishment of Wilderness City. Now, they were deeply rooted in the far west wilderness. They were not to be trifled with. The news of the Saint King's tomb was announced by the Ouyang family not long before Luo Qingtong came to the far west wilderness. The latter gathered many forces in Wilderness City and announced the news of the Saint King's tomb to the public. They also showed the map of the Saint King's tomb to everyone, indicating that they would not monopolize the existence of the Saint King's tomb. Once the map was collected, all forces in Wilderness City would be invited to explore the Saint King's tomb together. The other party said it so selflessly. Luo Qingtong had doubts in her heart. She absolutely did not believe that the Ouyang family did not have the intention of monopolizing the existence of the Saint King's tomb. Even if their family could not monopolize it, it was normal to use the map to exchange for some benefits and then cooperate with several families and forces to explore together. Why did they announce it so selflessly? There must be a reason. Luo Qingtong needed to find out. Yes. Master, don't worry, I will do my best to find out. Luo Qingtong nodded and was ready to leave with Yi Qianxian. However, the latter could not control its cub nature from the moment she started tapping on the table. It stared unblinkingly at Luo Qingtong's jade-white fingers, which were gently tapping on the table. Then, it abruptly jumped out of her arms and lay on the table. It played with her fingers in all kinds of ways and jumped around. It was having so much fun. Yi Qianxian could not bear to look at his cub's silly actions. He tried his best to suppress it but could not. When this cub's body in front of Luo Qingtong, it seemed to be particularly lively. Yi Qianxian could not control it no matter how hard he tried. It was not careful, it made a stupid mistake. If it wasn't for the fact that Luo Qingtong didn't know that the silver fox was her, Yi Qianren didn't know what kind of expression she should have when facing Luo Qingtong. It was simply Yi Qianxian's heart. Luo Qingtong, on the other hand, froze when she saw the silver fox jump out. When she realized it was playing with her fingers, she couldn't help but laugh. Looking at the little guy's face full of disdain and playing happily, Luo Qingtong really loved its arrogant character of saying one thing and thinking another. It really was the same as a certain someone. Speaking of which, she really missed Yi Qianxian. Luo Qingtong was not in a hurry to leave. She did not care that Yan Yang and the others were next to her. She used her fingers to play with the silver fox. The little guy's reaction was very funny. Its eyes were full of, "How could I like this kind of thing?" and "Don't bring it over." Chapter 1291. When it missed, it would anxiously scratch the table with its claws. Then, the next time it pounced, it would try even harder. Luo Qingtong watched as it tried to act cute. In the end, she allowed it to grab her finger. The little guy was very happy. It hugged Luo Qingtong and rolled around on the table. It even used its toothless mouth to nibble on Luo Qingtong's finger. Luo Qingtong couldn't help but laugh when she saw this. The girl's laughter rang through the room. Yi Qianqian's face was gloomy. He gritted his teeth and wanted to strangle the young fox's body. But when he heard Luo Qingtong's laughter and saw the girl's happy face, the gloominess in his heart lessened. Forget it. Who told this girl to like it? If I'm not good enough, then so be it. He thought dejectedly. He completely gave up the idea of struggling to control this body and let it roll around on the table, ruining his image. Luo Qingtong played with the silver fox for a while. Then, she picked it up and walked outside. Okay, I'm not playing anymore. When we get back, I'll make you a little cloth tiger to play with. Yi Qianqian's face was gloomy as he nestled in Luo Qingtong's arms. When he heard the girl's words, his mouth twitched. What little cloth tiger? He didn't want that. Yi Qianxian couldn't imagine his young fox body hugging a little cloth tiger and biting it. This damn demon fox blood curse, when will it be cured? Yi Qianxian felt the demon fox blood in his body slowly dissolve. He angrily sharpened his claws in Luo Qingtong's arms and scratched the girl's clothes. Luo Qingtong didn't scold him. She just lovingly pinched his little claws and said, "Do you really like it? Can't wait. When we get back, I'll make it for you." Thinking that Yi Qianxian liked her, Luo Qingtong was very happy and smiled. Sure enough, no matter if it was a child or a cub, they all liked those cute little toys. Unfortunately, the little pig was too noisy, and the gold-seeking hamsters were too rare, easily attracting attention. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong would have released them to accompany the little fox. However, Luo Qingtong immediately dispelled this idea when she recalled Little Pig's despicable personality. She carried Yi Qianxian back to the room and made a little cloth tiger for him. The little cloth tiger made by Luo Qingtong could be said to be lifelike. Although she had never touched needlework before, Luo Qingtong had blood-red eyes. She easily learned it on the spot and made a cute little tiger for Yi Qianxian. Ah! Luo Qingtong threatened Yi Qianxian with the little cloth tiger in her hand. The tiger is coming. Yi Qianxian looked at her and was speechless for a while. He really didn't know what to say. Luo Qingtong looked at his disdainful and disgusted expression and was very amused. She looked at the little silver fox and pursed her lips into a smile. Then, she threw the little cloth tiger to the ground. In an instant, the little cloth tiger started to move on the ground. It turned out that Luo Qingtong had made 4 wooden rollers below and installed a small mechanism so that the little cloth tiger could make use of the throwing force to move continuously on the ground. Yi Qianren looked at this little cloth tiger and originally didn't want to bother with it. However, its body couldn't take it anymore. Immediately, they ran to catch that little cloth tiger again. Chapter 1292. Just as Luo Qingtong was teasing Yi Qianxian, in the Huo family of Wildland City. When Luo Qingtong subdued the mother of venomous insects, Bai Feng had already spat out a mouthful of blood. What's going on? Bai Feng was shocked. She could clearly feel that she had lost contact with the mother of venomous insects. How could this be? Her heart was filled with disbelief. This venomous insect technique was a strange technique that she had accidentally obtained. With this strange technique, she had secretly established the voodoo sect in Wildland City. Using her identity as the eldest daughter of the Bai family and the young mistress of the Huo family, as well as the mysterious and strange effects of the venomous insect technique, she had been doing very well in Wildland City. Now, she was not inferior to an average middle-class family. Bai Feng had only been waiting for the voodoo sect to continue to grow. Then, she would be able to obtain more benefits for herself and become a person that no one could ignore in Wildland City or even the entire Western Wilderness. By then, even the Huo family would have to support her. But now, the mother of venomous insects was no longer around. Could it be that something had happened in the voodoo sect? Did someone break through the restrictions of the venomous insect technique and betray them? Did they control the mother of venomous insects? This was the only reason Bai Feng could think of. Her heart was filled with hatred. If she had known this would happen, she would not have given them the venomous insect flute to hide her identity. These bastards. Bai Feng was both shocked and furious. She wiped the blood from her mouth and called for the servant girl outside. I have to return to the Bai family for some matters. If the young master comes back and asks about it, tell him that I'll be back in 2 days. Big brother has some matters to attend to. Bai Feng gritted her teeth as she said this. Her eyes were cold. Yes, the servant girl replied obediently. Bai Feng left the Huo family with a cold expression. When she reached the Bai family, she immediately changed her clothes and went to the voodoo sect's headquarters. When she saw the voodoo sect's headquarters that had been cleaned up by Yu Sihuang, or rather, burned to ashes, she felt as if someone had hit her in the head. She almost fainted and fell to the ground. Who did this? Bai Feng's delicate and charming face was twisted with anger. She had spent so many years painstakingly establishing the voodoo sect. How much effort had he put into this? Not to mention that the voodoo sect had given her everything she had gained over the years. All the treasures and resources that the voodoo sect had gathered from the powerful families in Desolate City were also in there. But now, they were all wiped out. She had thought that someone in the voodoo sect had betrayed them, but now, it seemed like that wasn't the case at all. The other party had moved too thoroughly. Bai Feng was infuriated. She searched the ruins for a long time, unwilling to give up. She searched for the goo using her heart's blood according to the goo art she had obtained, and the method to retrieve the goo worm. He had used all kinds of methods, but he was still unable to contact the location of his goo mother. That was the goo poison queen that she had obtained by luck, and she had always treated it as her favorite. If it wasn't for the fact that she was afraid of Hu Fei spouting nonsense and ruining her plans, how could she bear to place the goo poison queen in his mind? Fortunately, no one had noticed anything amiss after all these years. Instead, he had absorbed Hu Fei's life force and soul energy to replenish himself. When the goo mother grew, she would also benefit from it. His strength had grown a lot over the years. Who would have thought that he would disappear now? Chapter 1293. Luo Qingtong's method of controlling the goo mother originated from the goo god sect. It was the goo god sect's method of controlling the goo mother. Now that she had broken the connection between Bai Feng and the goo mother, it was impossible for her to summon the goo mother back, unless her goo techniques were more profound than the goo god sect's goo mother. However, how many years had the goo god sect been around for? How many years had Bai Feng been practicing goo techniques? They were not even on the same level. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She ignored Bai Feng's attempts to summon the goo mother. Every time the other party's mental waves were transmitted, she would cut them off. The goo mother did not respond. It only flapped its wings lightly when Luo Qingtong's mental waves fluctuated. On the other hand, Yi Qianqian's young fox body immediately stopped chasing after the little cloth tiger when it saw the goo mother. It only focused on attacking the goo mother. Luo Qingtong was overjoyed when she saw this. She pursed her lips and smiled. She mischievously ordered the goo mother to tease the silver fox up and down. The silver fox kept flapping its wings, but it still could not be caught. Yi Qianqian's heart had given up struggling. He looked expressionlessly at the body of his young fox, which was struggling in the air with all kinds of abilities. He secretly made a note of Luo Qingtong in his heart. How many times had this woman tamed and teased him? When he regained his human form, he would definitely make her pay for all of it. Luo Qingtong ordered the goo mother to fly around the courtyard. In an instant, she had unlocked the posture of walking a fox. She rested her chin on her hand and looked at the little fox's happy face as it flapped its wings. The smile on her face was indescribably happy. As for Bai Feng, after several failed attempts to summon the goo mother, she was about to vomit blood. She could feel that the goo mother was not dead. It was just that it had lost contact with her. However, she could not summon it back. Bai Feng was so angry that she gritted her teeth and turned ashen. Just as she returned to the Bai family with an ugly expression, the second elder of family whose branch came to her door with a shocking news. Yen Nyang is back. Patriarch Bai, didn't you say that you would help us gain control of the Hu clan? When the time comes, we will cooperate with you to put pressure on Hu Zhongtian. Let him take care of family Hu and Hu Fei's safety and hand over that thing. Don't tell me you guys have forgotten? The second elder's face was gloomy. Before Bai Changfeng said anything, Bai Feng had already walked out from behind the screen. She had already changed by Yong Nyang. When she heard the second elder's words, her face immediately turned cold and she said, "Of course not. Don't worry. Family Hu is family whose branch is branch. Yen is back. What a coincidence." It couldn't be that she had something to do with the voodoo sect, could it? However, Mother's mother Hu Yen Yang had been chased out of the far west wastelands in such a miserable state. No matter how lucky he was, there was no way he could wipe out the entire voodoo sect so easily. Not a single clue was left behind. Moreover, the person who did it seemed to be proficient in gu arts. Bai Feng suspected that it was an expert from the hidden world. It was rumored that the hidden world was the gateway to the outer realms. There were people with all kinds of inheritances. This time, the news of the sage monarch's tomb had spread and attracted many people from the hidden world. It was not impossible that some of them knew gu arts. Chapter 1294. Bai Feng gritted her teeth as she thought of this. If that was really the case, then she could only grit her teeth and swallow her pride. After all, everything that the voodoo sect did was shady. She could not make a big deal out of it and let the Hua and Bai family stand up for her. Bai Feng's heart was filled with anger and frustration as she thought of this. Fortunately, although the parasite queen was gone, only the Bai family knew about the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb in the family Hu. As long as they could get their hands on the map, they would have the right to be on equal footing with the Ouyang family. They would be able to share the greatest benefits from the exploration of the Saint Monarch's tomb. When the time came and she revealed this to the Hua family, the Bai and Hua families would join forces. Her status in the Hua family would naturally rise and she would be even more influential. Bai Feng's frustration lessened as she thought of this. She looked coldly at second elder and said, "Go back and ask Hu Zhongtian to abdicate his position. We will put pressure on him. Ask him to hand over the family Hu's item and abdicate his position to you." Hu Zhongtian was about to die and the parasite queen in Hu Fei's body had been awakened. He would definitely not survive. Bai Feng was very confident of this. So what if Hu Yenyang came back? Could it be that she could rely on her own strength to overturn the entire Hu clan? She was just giving them a bargaining chip to threaten Hu Zhongtian to hand over the item. In the end, she would have to watch her father and brother die and family Hu fall into the hands of the collateral family. However, it was good that the mother and son were back. It was a good opportunity for her to eliminate them completely. Otherwise, with that man's identity, the mother and son's existence would be a disaster. She could not let that man know what she had done back then. Otherwise, her lie would be exposed. She and the Bai family would fall into eternal damnation. Even the Hua family would not be able to protect her. Bai Feng's expression was very serious as she thought of this. An uncontrollable murderous intent and jealousy appeared in the depths of her eyes. Back then, she did not expect that her casual scheme to set up Hu Yenyang would end up involving such a man. Moreover, the latter obviously could not forget Hu Yenyang. If she hadn't received the news in time, she would have forced Hu Yenyang and her son to leave and deceive that man. He was afraid that he would have been exposed and turned into a corpse at that time. At the thought of this, the jealousy in Bai Feng's eyes became even more obvious. She really couldn't understand why Hu Yinyang's luck was so good. She had tried every possible means to snatch her husband away. In the end, she had found a better man in the blink of an eye. And it was designed by him. As Bai Feng thought about this, she clenched her teeth so hard that they were about to bleed. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent. Seeing this, the second elder nodded in satisfaction and left. He had already contacted the people in the clan. When those highly respected elders heard that Yan Yang had returned and that Hu Zhongtian seemed to intend to let her inherit the family they immediately rushed over to stop all this. He had already convinced them to support him in seizing the position of patriarch, forcing Hu Zhongtian to give up the position of patriarch. Now, with the help of the Bai family, he would definitely succeed. When the time comes, he would definitely chase Hu Zhongtian and the others out of the family just like how he and the others had ended up in such a sorry state. The second elder left in satisfaction as he thought of this. Chapter 1295. She took out the amethyst bright jade fruit that she had obtained previously. The amethyst bright jade fruit was a miraculous fruit. Not only did it have a miraculous effect on increasing one's mental strength, but it also contained a huge amount of medicinal power. It was enough for Luo Qingtong to break through to the martial ancestor realm. It had been some time since Luo Qingtong had broken through to the peak of the martial emperor realm. Now, it was time to try to break through to the martial ancestor realm. After all, if she wanted to go to the Sage King's tomb, she could not be too weak. With that thought in mind, Luo Qingtong immediately put the amethyst bright jade fruit into her mouth. With the Gu mother guarding outside and playing with the silver fox, Luo Qingtong was not worried that someone would barge in while she was breaking through. Moreover, she had already told everyone not to barge into her courtyard for no reason. Luo Qingtong focused on breaking through. The moment the amethyst bright jade fruit entered her mouth, it immediately turned into streaks of medicinal power and flowed into Luo Qingtong's limbs and bones. A portion of the medicinal power flowed into her mind. The other portion of the medicinal power flowed into her elixir field and circulated along her meridians, strengthening the power in her body. Rumble. Waves of power surged in Luo Qingtong's body like stormy waves, expanding the meridians in her body. As the medicinal power pushed and strengthened, Luo Qingtong's barrier to the martial ancestor realm in her body was also constantly attacked. Rumble. A faint barrier, invisible to the naked eye, lit up around Luo Qingtong's body. It vaguely communicated with the surrounding heaven and earth energy. Among them, streaks of energy that were wrapped in medicinal power bombarded the barrier like a torrential storm. Crack, crack, crack. Cracks began to appear on the barrier. But strangely, it did not break. Luo Qingtong frowned slightly. Is the accumulation of power not enough? Luo Qingtong originally thought that the amethyst bright jade fruit was enough for her to break through to the martial ancestor realm. Now, it seemed that she was still lacking a little. That's right. She had just absorbed Feng Wuan's energy to break through to the peak of the martial emperor realm. He was afraid that the power was not solid enough. Therefore, even with the help of the purple jade brightheart fruit, it was impossible for him to break through the barrier and enter the martial ancestor realm. However, the fact that she was able to create a crack meant that the level of power in her body had reached a certain level. It was just that the degree of condensation of the power was not enough. Otherwise, he could have broken through in one go. However, the next breakthrough would be fine too. With this in mind, Luo Qingtong prepared to withdraw her power. She still felt some regret in her heart. It would be great if Yi Qianxian was here. She could borrow some of his strength to break through the barrier and enter the martial ancestor realm. After all, she could use a man's power as her own. It could completely make up for her lack of condensed power. Unfortunately, he wasn't here. Forget it. he could break through again the next time. However, Luo Qingtong frowned. She always felt that the Ouyang clan's leaking of the Saint King's tomb was not simple. If possible, she still wanted to increase her strength as soon as possible. Just as Luo Qingtong was thinking, outside, Yi Qianxian controlled his young fox body. When he turned around and saw that Luo Qingtong was breaking through, he immediately rushed in through the door. He walked to Luo Qingtong's side. With a casual glance, he could clearly see that the problem that Luo Qingtong was facing was that the degree of condensation of the power was not enough. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.